All right, let's start with going through the chords that you did. For the most part, we're good. Just some things I want to point out or ask you about. Um, let's see, where was the first thing? I guess one thing we can do here. Yes, this is the F sus sharp 4. One thing I recommend people do if they have a really hard time holding that entire chord, this is one I feel is appropriate to just play the bottom 4 strings. So just hitting that instead of trying to hit all of those 6 strings. You certainly can hit all 6. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I don't think there's anything wrong with just hitting these 4 though. So I just wanted to point that out. Let's see. All right, so here's one to look at. The way you currently have this C suspended 4 filled out. And hang on, I want to try and do something here. Alright, if I have it over on that monitor, we're good. So, looking at your PDF here, it talks about, when converting any of these triads to the sus2, easiest way to do it is to identify the note that needs to be changed, the third or flat third interval, and lower that note to the very next note in key. And then says to change the triad chords into the suspended 4 counterparts, simply raise the third or flat interval up to the next note in key. So I got that in there because I do feel it's the easiest way to make changes. So we're going to be looking at that C sus4 you had. And again, says raise the third or flat third interval up to the very next note in key. Because we're just dealing with stuff that happens in key right now. So, when you look at this, compare it to your C chord here. See, that's your root note. There's your third. There's the E note. G is the 5. C is the 1. E is another third. So you got the open E string, or the high open E string, and the E string on the D string, or the E note on the D string. So if you raised the third interval up to the very next note in key, you'd be going C to F, which would just basically change that to a 3 and that to a 1, and that's the C sus4 right there. And when you had a C suspended 4 earlier, that's exactly what you had, exactly what you did. But here, you are not doing that. So my question is that done on purpose? Did you try just doing another way of doing it? I want to know, why you went about it that way. Bringing that up also because oftentimes students will forget that little rule or that quick step on finding things, and then they start rebuilding stuff from scratch, and it takes way more time to get to the new chord than it ever needs to be. We can always complicate things later. I want everyone to understand how to do it quickly first. So what you wrote there is totally acceptable. But the question is, was it creative reason for doing it that way? Because instead of just taking the third interval there and raising it up to an F, you took that third interval and raised it up to the 5th. Again, it's fine. You can do that. I just wanted to know why you did it. Looking up here, perhaps you just looked at this guy and changed the E or the D up to the F. And I always recommend, just the way, I know it's been a little while, but if you can remember or think back to how we did the suspended chords the first time. So after you took the triad and turned it into the sus2, I always had you go back, and I have everyone go back to the triad chord first, because we're not trying to change a sus2 into a sus4. We're always trying to change the triad into the sus2, change the triad into the sus4. This way the steps are easier. You're not trying to do too many things. You always go back to home base and go from there. That makes things a lot more easy to handle, removes a lot of the thinking. I feel it does anyway. Continuing, I don't remember if there anything else here. Yeah, then the C sus4, you went back to the other way. So when I see inconsistencies like that, I just want to know what the thought process was to make sure we eliminate unnecessary steps. Try and keep this as simple as possible, really. All right, everything looks good there. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So if we look at the way you have the B sus flat 2 here, that's definitely acceptable. And this is kind of a funky one to try and hold anyway. So nothing really wrong with that. I think the way we originally did it, though, just to point it out, started with that B minor chord. There's the flat third. Then that's a D note. We need to drop it down to a C. So we ended up doing it like that. But yeah, that's not a very fun chord to hold. So totally fine to do it that way. Let's see. Well, that looks good there. This one here. So talking about the whole steps thing, multiple things happened here, looks like. Now this absolutely is a C suspended second, totally fine to do that, but it does implement more steps than what is discussed in that PDF. So again, just want to make sure you understand and can remember the simple way of doing all this stuff instead of overcomplicating anything, because I don't want you or anyone spending like 5-10 minutes just to figure out one chord, especially when it comes to these like 3-note chords. Like eventually we're going to get to some really ridiculous stuff and there's a lot more thought involved, but right now these are, I feel like they're pretty simple in terms of like changing it from one chord to the next. So just want you to know how and remember how to make it as easy as possible. So, like comparing up here, so you did comparing the C to the C sus2 right below it. We can see S-E-E. We can see that you took the third interval, the E note, and you lowered it down to the D, which is good. Then it looks like you took this C note here and raised it up to the D, which is fine. So now you have two second intervals, and then you took the E and raised that up to the G, which we did before because we can't have an E note anymore. Again, a totally acceptable way of doing it. A little bit extra steps there. So I guess the question is, did you do it for a reason? Was it just because it sounded better to you? Just easier to hold? It is a lot easier to hold. So again, totally fine. Just wanted to know what the thought process was. So yeah, you got the C sus sharp 4 fixed, so that's good there. There's another one. Sometimes leaving a string out makes it a little bit easier. If you leave a string out, I would just cut out the high E string, because doing it that way is pretty doable. I feel like yeah, make sure that pinky or middle finger gets down there can be a bit of a pain. So just an option. I feel that's an acceptable chord to cut a string off, but it does sound a lot more full with the high E. So anyway, let's see. Then yeah, you went back to the original way here. Again, nothing wrong. I keep repeating myself. Down here, so I believe I had erased this one and this one. That's because I want you to go through doing it the way it's written out in the PDF. Because let's take a look at what you did here. Because all you have to do, again, is like change one thing in this F sharp diminished chord. With that being the root note, that's the flat 5, there's a root note again, that's the flat third. You just have that one thing to change. You either drop it down for the sus2 version or raise it up for the sus4 version. But down here, you did take this note and lower it down, which is good, but then you also took this note and raised it up. So instead of just lowering the third or the flat third down to the flat second, you took the octave and raised that up to the flat second, and now you got these two notes, which is really the same note. So if it was a stylistic thing, fair enough. But to me it shows, I'm guessing, that you did more steps than was necessary, because once you changed the B note, or not the B note, the A note down to a G, that was it, you're done. Like, again, just to create the new chord, raising the octave of the root note up to the flat second and having the flat second at the same, just that, the same pitch, didn't, I mean, you could, I don't know, maybe you could say, like, well, it does add to it. Again, if you like the way it sounds, fair enough. But here, you can barely even tell the difference. Very small change there. But anyway, yeah, just here to here, is the most simple way of doing it, I feel. Even going from the E sus2 to the F sharp sus flat 2 flat 5, I mean, you have even less to do if you just play it that way instead of doing it that. Because if you go from here to here, your ring finger is already where it needs to be. So doing it this way creates more work. So I'm going to erase that again. I want you to do it the way described in the PDF. Just take the one note and change that, and then you're done with it. Let's see. Jesus. All right, here. So again, we got more stuff happening. Hold on a sec. Right. And you went like this. Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, typically people are doing this one, you're just worried about going from that flat third up to the 4. I'm gonna go on a limb here and assume you put the B string in there because, like, well, why not? It's just the same note, so fair enough there. So yeah, but I would like you to go back and just change this one to the 1 note change, not the 2 note change, okay? So that's the only thing to change there. This guy, I did see something. That's fine. This one here, though. I think we talked about this already, like changing the high E note to the G instead of the F. I feel it makes the chord more difficult to play instead of just raising the E up to the F. So perhaps change that guy. Okay, this here, that's not a B flat suspended sharp 4. And an issue that you ran into here, like, I'm just trying to think how I want to word all this to not give the answer away completely, but get you to figure it out yourself. So in that B flat major chord, where is the third interval? You need to raise that up to the next note in key. So you ended up lowering a note to get to the sharp 4. And something that needs to be changed was not changed, and so that's why you don't have a B flat suspended sharp 4. In fact, you have too many notes. So this needs to just get redone, because that's, follow the steps, find the third interval, raise it up to the next note in key. If you do that, you'll be good. Was somebody making a shortcut? What happened here? This is my first time going through the whole thing. I was looking through stuff and I figured I'd just like talk about it in the video. Man, that's 16 minutes long. Goodness gracious. Yeah, something's going on in that bar we need to fix. Can you spot it? Alright, same thing. That is not a B suspended sharp 4. It's supposed to be. That's what we want there, but that's not the right chord. Alright, good. The way you did that, C sus4, is the easy way to do it. Follows the steps we talked about. Here, yes, that is an F sus4. It does take more than one step, though, because looking at this, comparing it to this, I can see that you took the 5th interval here and you lowered that down to the 4, and then you took the 3rd interval here and raised that up to the 4. So, completely acceptable way of doing it. But did you know that you did 2 moves instead of just the one that needed to be done? Let's see. Alright, good. Exactly what we want there. Doing that, not following the steps, you created something we're not supposed to have. Or, wait a minute. No, I should take that back. You raised that up to a B flat and lowered that down to an A. Alright, just to make sure you understand the process I'm talking about, I want you to redo that one too. Because it looks like what you did, instead of just taking this flat 3rd and raising it up to the next note and key and being done, you took the flat 3rd, raised it up to the flat 5, and then took the flat 5 and lowered that down to the 4. So, again, the stylistic approach, fair enough, but it doesn't show me that you understand and remember the simple way of doing it. Because if you did, it would just be taking that one note and raising that up to the next note and key, and then you're done. Instead of taking 2 steps to get there, we only need the 1. So, hopefully that all makes sense. For the most part, though, you got most of it good, most of it correct. But there we go. Some more theory talk. Move this back over to the usual monitor. Close these. And let's get the demonstration. Alright, metronome coming up. Yeah, still starting at 40. Because these next few rhythms are going to be ridiculously hard because it gets way too easy to have your upstrokes drift into where the downstrokes are supposed to be. So really want to ease into this one. 40. I'm going to change this back. Alright. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1 and a 2 E, a 4, 1 and a 2 E, a 4, 1E and a 2 E, a 4, 1E and a 2 E, E, a 4, done. Go to 80. 1, 2, 3, 4. And give 120 to go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, number 2. Back down to 40. 1. Well, that was too quick. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E, a 2E, a 4, 1E, a 2E, a 3E, 4, 1E, a 2E, a 4, 80. 1, 2, 3, 4. $120. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 1, 2, 3, 4. Definitely tough to get correct going fast. So just remember, anytime you doubt that it's incorrect, assume that it is. And if you don't feel 100% confident in the take, assume that it was incorrect. We gotta only move on when you feel 100% confident, okay? And follow along with Guitar Pro if you need to. It's totally fine. All right, number 3, 40. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E, E, E, 1 and a 2E, E, E, 2E, Actually, I'm going to go 70 next for this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. No. 1, 2, 3, 4. $100. 1, 2, 3, 4. Try 120. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Felt pretty good. Okay, preview, asked about that. It's really the same thing we do with the eighth notes. So once we are done with the 16th note chords, which is pretty soon, as long as it all goes well, well, the next rhythm is just going to be something like, so you always strum down at the very beginning of each bar, and after that we get to test to see how quickly you can be picking single notes with 16th notes. So I'll be putting stuff up on the screen share, like try this. We'll start simple and then have you try at some different speeds to see where we need to begin. And really depends on, you know, what certain people can handle. We may, again, depends on how well you do. Eventually we'll get to this point anyway, so if we don't start it right away, then it's not a big deal. We will get to it eventually. But like changing left hand or changing your fingers the whole time you're picking, you know, stuff like that. If it feels more appropriate, we'll be just doing stuff like to where you're picking 16th notes, but you're not changing like notes every single pick stroke. We may need to ease into that. We don't know yet. And then, just like we do with the 8th notes, we do a bunch of the 16th note patterns with single strings, single notes, and then do the same thing with legato. And then after that, go into 8th note triplets, and then chords, single notes, legato. So that's the big bulk of what we're doing technique-wise. I can't remember if I've asked you about palm mute accent patterns. Have I? Let me know if we've talked about that at all yet. Alright, long video this time, but hopefully it's helpful. Any questions at all, let me know. And I think you mentioned you could send a video for next week, and that's fine. Send a video so you're still fresh off of practice. But what day do you get back? Let me know that too. What day of the month do you get back? Alright, talk to you soon.